Welcome to Immigrate. Welcome to a space where you can be vulnerable, a space where you're not going to be judged, a space where you can be authentic. And my hope and desire is to inspire and motivate everyone that click onto this podcast. So welcome to another episode of Immigrate. Trigger warning alert. If you're struggling with anything that has to do with mental health, just be mindful that these episodes might be a bit intense, and it's okay if you can't listen it right now. And as we go on, let's just pray. Heavenly loving Father, everyone that clicked onto this podcast may receive a power that and a peace of mind that is far beyond measure. In the name of Jesus, I pray that you may cover them. Whatever trigger warning that might be in their mind, remove it in the name of Jesus and help them be blessed. Help them to listen and listen with a keen heart in Jesus' name. Amen. I am so excited. I have one of my favorite family here. Yes, I said family. I'm so excited. I want them to introduce themselves again. They were on my season 1 podcast and they're back here. So welcome guys to my podcast.
Thank you so much for having us back. We're so excited to be here with you.
Thank you. So I know you guys, for those who don't know you, can you guys reintroduce yourself and just talk a little bit about yourself and which country you moved to?
Yeah, sure. So, we are, like, I just wanted to also say, we are so thrilled to be back on the podcast. We had such a great time in season 1, and we are super excited to be back here for season 2. So, like you said, we're a family. We're originally from Canada, but for the past 2.5 years, we've actually been living in Lisbon, Portugal, and we have been loving the adventure, and we're super excited to talk about our journey so far.
Wonderful. I guess we'll just go right into it. Touch on a little bit. I don't remember if we talked about why you guys chose Portugal instead of. Oh yeah, we did. But for people like I don't have a clue. Why did you guys choose Portugal instead of any other country?
There were a number of reasons that we picked Portugal. First of all, we do have a familial tie. So my aunt is Portuguese, and so I grew up with my aunt and learning, about culture, Portuguese culture, and really eating Portuguese food and things like that. So there was a familial tie there, and so moving to Portugal made it a little bit easier. Not that she's in Portugal, but just even being able to speak to the language, the
okay.
culture, the people. So that was part of it.
And kind of getting to know a bit, like, from all those times about stories about Portugal, about the culture, and it kind of helped with the transition and us wanting to go here because we had heard so many stories about Portugal.
The other reason was really part of it was climate. We had heard about the Portuguese climate. We really were very, very interested in being in a warmer climate than the one that we came from. So
Yeah.
we're again,
Yeah.
like Jack said, we're originally from Canada. And so the kids still miss the snow, but I can tell you most definitely that my husband and I don't. So gosh, the climate.
Yes. We also
And
moved, like, right after, like, when the world opened up after COVID again, because I'm homeschooled. My parents are internet marketers. They've always worked from home. So it was always kind of an idea that we wanted to move to Europe because they had also done, like, trips and, like, to France, to England, and it was just kind of something that they'd want to experience and I want to experience too. So after, like, COVID, like, in COVID, you had a lot of time to think about what you really want to do with your life, kind of like get more clarity about what the next steps were, about your goals and your dreams. And we kind of thought, like, well, the world's opening back up again. Why don't we just do it now? And something
yeah,
else
and
that
yes.
contributed to that was also I'm an elite level athlete. My academy director when I was 11 told me by the age of 13 I should go to play soccer in Europe because my dream is to be a professional soccer player, and I have the work ethic, the dedication, the skills, the movements, all of those things that so I have the potential to do that. So he said something that would be really beneficial would be to go to Europe before the age of 13, around the age of 13, which is when
How's that
So,
going? Go ahead. Go
that
ahead.
is
well, I was just going to say, so there were a number of reasons why Europe and then specifically Portugal.
It's
yeah.
So,
Portugal.
yes,
Um
I will let Jack answer your question.
Yeah, but it's going really good. I've played for 2 clubs up to date, and it's been really I feel really lucky and really blessed to have gone to some really amazing clubs with some great, like, club atmosphere and stuff, and this year I played in the Portuguese youth division 1 year up, which has been absolutely
Wow.
amazing, and it's been a great experience.
That's awesome. I remember when we were talking about it, but you were trying to transition into. So it's good that you have into it, and that's exciting. I'm hoping to hear some big news that you've got into some big leagues. So I'm here to and the fly on the
Alright.
wall. Okay, this season I don't know if we have touched on it, but I said I wanted to talk about mental health because a lot of times people don't understand that your mental health affects you in some sort of way when we moved to a new country. I know for me it did. It That was the
Mhm.
first time I understand what anxiety was. So
Okay.
just touch on like share a time when you guys felt like you had a mental breakdown and how did like a story, how did you guys overcame that experience as a family?
I think, it's so interesting because, like Jack said, it was always part of our life plan, mine and my husband's, to move to Europe, at least for a part of our lives. All the kids and my husband, they're EU citizens, so making that jump was relatively easy. Like we knew that we would be able to do that, and so
Right.
the interesting thing though is even when you want to do that and you're very interested in coming and experiencing a different country, I think people don't realize that there is a very real transition period where it could be extremely difficult, even if it's something that you want to do. So I know, and I might have said it before, but I know that when we first came to Portugal, just missing Canada, missing family, missing friends, and really learning. Obviously, we had the language barrier, like we didn't speak hardly any Portuguese. We weren't
Right.
familiar with where we were. All of that was very difficult. So you touch on anxiety, that causes a certain degree of anxiety because all of these things that you take for granted and are normal in your everyday life are just all of a sudden not there anymore.
Right.
So that was very difficult. I know that, I say like I cried for every day, literally every day for 2 months, even though I wanted to be in Portugal because I still felt like things were so challenging. But I think knowing that these ups and downs are part of the transition makes it easier to get through them. Knowing that at some point things they do get easier, even just familiarity. Like the more familiar you become with where you are, the easier it gets.
Right. So so then what like when did you realize that oh my god, it's becoming harder? Like it was there a time of the day or did you when you get up in the morning it's like ugh, I wish this reminds me in Canada. Like is there a time when you're like, my god, I literally just moved. Like when did the reality hit? Did something
For
happen?
me,
The cab.
the cab. So we got to Portugal, like, I think, like, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. So when we were getting the cab to our first Airbnb, I remember looking out the window and the sun was just starting to come up. I remember thinking to myself, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" And I feel like that was, like, really the reality saying, like, "Whoa, like, you're here. It's not just, like, an idea or a plan anymore, like, you are here." So, and there I feel like there are lots of times and kinda, like, where you're kinda like, "Oh my god," like and even, like, little things, like getting, uh, like, a message from a friend in Canada can make you feel homesick or just little things that remind you of Canada can it can make there are all these ups and downs. So, like, for me, I wouldn't say that there was this one point that felt like everything felt really hard, but then there was these, like, kinda reminders, like, Canada, 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 that would make things difficult.
Was it the food? Probably.
We know
No.
we love the food, so that was not a problem.
No.
Okay. You
No,
guys
that
had
was not a
Portugal food
food.
before?
Well, my aunts, like, I mean, if we go over to my aunts or we'd have, barbecue or something like
Okay.
that. The kids, not so much. Me, mostly growing up because we would do that when we were younger.
Right.
But sure, like, I mean, we love the food in Portugal, but of course there were things, I some of the things that we missed when we first got here. I think, like for a long time I couldn't. What were we looking for? There were
Well,
things that you would look for that you couldn't find,
and it's just
you
kind of
know?
disorienting when like even like the streets, like the places you are when they're all different, and like when you've lived in a specific place or country for so long, you kind of know where everything is, and then like kind of when you move to a new country, you're like, I don't know where anything is. You have to use Google Maps for basically everything. It's kind of crazy because it's just like all this like, wow, there's so
Yes.
much different.
Yes.
Portugal looks different. The language was a
I
very
think,
big thing.
yeah, I think your senses are just overwhelmed, from like a very like
Yeah.
like you literally are just incredibly overwhelmed by all of your senses
Yeah.
because none of
Everything's
it,
new.
yeah, everything is new.
I think you guys had a video on your YouTube when you found Tim Martins. Was it when you guys found Tim Martins and Starbucks on one of your YouTube
Yes.
channel?
Yeah.
So
Yes, we did go into a star.
yeah,
Yes, we talked about, yes, you're right, finding familiar things. So, like,
yeah,
how we would deal with homesickness, and sometimes it would just be, like, instead of getting a small cafe here, like, just getting, like, a large Starbucks because it reminded you of
of
home.
home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So and then sometimes it's also where I mean, last season we touched on people, language, and stuff like that. So we don't want to repeat those things. But some of the things that cause mental health too, or let you miss home, is like not too close to family, right? So if an
Yes.
immigrant wants to move entirely with a family, what are some of the tips that you can share with them to overcome those anxieties, those things that they miss? What would you say to them?
So sorry, Tash, the question was if, yes, like they're missing certain things, like their families, like how to
Yeah, the same
overcome them.
thing. Yeah, the
Yes.
same.
Um,
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I think, especially at the beginning and still so much, and we're so lucky this way too. Like we talk about wanting to disconnect from technology because like it's everywhere, but at the same time, us being able to connect and see our family and friends was really, really comforting. So to be able to get, on a video call and just to be able to sit down with them and see them and talk to them was very helpful, especially like when you're missing them so much. So that was helpful.
Another thing can just be like even like if you meet someone that has come that's like is also like an expat in whatever country you're in, it can be very like comforting just to hear about someone else's experience that has been here, been there longer for you and maybe has more experience, and it can kind of just be comforting to like be able to speak the same language, have some familiar like situations. And then like you can also like go to a restaurant that like makes your like your I'm forgetting the word, but I want to say local cuisine, but like the cuisine from your country, and just things that remind you of home. So whether like it's a candle or like talking to like family or friends. Like I said, I think it's really about finding things that remind you of home. So even like the mall was something that reminded us of home for us, just because
Yeah,
it was
because I
so
remember
familiar.
when I watched your video and you guys found that mall. It like I
Yes.
think someone said in the video that reminds you of home, one of those malls in the
Yeah.
Yes, and,
yeah,
like, the thing is, we almost never went to a mall when we were in Canada, but it literally is, like, the structure of a mall that is so familiar
yeah.
that, like, when you walk in it, you're like, "Oh, okay," like, even though this is like, you're in Portugal and this is a mall in it's still familiar to you, and I think when you first move to a country, you underestimate how much you want familiarity. Like, yes, you want change, you want to be in a different place. It's amazing. But at the same time, there's a part of you that longs for what you know. So,
I think the brain just sometimes the brain wants that familiarity too, right? To be like, because I could hear the joy in you guys' voice when I was watching those videos, and I'm like, like you know what I mean? It's like, oh my god. I don't know who said it. I don't know why I thought it was Tim Martins, but someone said we found Starbucks, and the joy, like
yes.
just a small little shop like Starbucks, brings
I
smile.
know, right?
And I know the joy it brings. It's not like but just that it's something similar. And I think you guys found
Yes,
somewhere else that remind you of Canada, but it's so nice to know. It brings that anxiety down. Is that okay? We are
it
not
does.
just away now. We find something that remind us of where we miss
Right.
sometimes. And you guys touch on family. Families are very important because sometimes when you video call your family, it's nice to just connect with them because you do miss them. You're far away. I
Yes.
know you guys did a video about going back to Canada. That was I cried in that video because I was like, oh my god, that must be a very like that was just touching just to go back to see them after you guys left for over a year. How
Yeah,
was that
it's
for
different.
you guys when you did that?
It's really interesting because we've now been to Canada 3 times
Yeah.
since we've moved to Portugal. And the first time, it's so interesting because when we go home or go to Canada, we don't want to leave, but at the same time, we've now become so accustomed to Portugal that we miss it.
Oh,
So, like, you really feel now that you're torn. Like, your heart is so, like, yes, you're torn. It's such an odd feeling because the very first time we came to Portugal from Canada, we knew nothing. And then when we came and then we went back to Canada and came back to Portugal again, like, now you're like, "Wow, I know this road. I know my car. I know," like,
yeah,
all of these things are now familiar, and
familiar.
it's
Yeah,
quite a change. But it's always so nice to go back to Canada. But, this last time we went over Christmas,
that
and it
time
was so cold.
I know.
It was
I
so
started
cold.
crying because I'm like, I don't know who was I keep remember. I watch you guys video
Yes,
like binge watch. So I'll just
yes,
watch
yes,
them over time, right?
yes.
But then I remember the last one for winter, and I'm like, oh, they went back. Yeah,
We went back, and I remember one time, so he was playing soccer while we were in Canada, and we got into the car. I think it was almost -20. It was early morning. He had to be there, I think, at like 8 or 7:30 in the morning. And Jack and I both got into the car, and we looked at ourselves, and we went, "Where's the Portuguese weather? What is this? Like, this is just great." So cold. So now we've said to ourselves, "We'll go back to Canada and we'll visit, but not in the winter."
And I was shocked that
Yeah.
like I had lost because like when you think like we've lived in Canada for
Our
our
whole
whole
life.
life, and then you just in the span of 2 years you forget how cold it is. It's
yeah.
like crazy,
And
and you
yeah.
lose your resistance to it too.
And the irony of it is that here in Portugal, because he plays soccer in the winter, and in the winter it's cold, it rains, it's fine. But I've said to like our friends here, they're always like, "Why are you so bundled up? You're from Canada." And I'm like, "It's cold here. It's rainy. The cold in
It's
Portugal
like
is
wet.
damp." I said it's worse than in Canada. And then we came back, and then I thought, no, 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 no,
It's
it's
not.
worse here.
We can't say anything to the Portuguese people
No,
that say,
because it's like
"Oh,
no, it's
Yeah,
worse. No, I don't. I
yeah,
think Canada is worse. I mean, I like the cold, so
yeah,
poor
it's worse.
meat. Yeah. Well, how have you guys been managing with your spiritual? Like, I know some of us we do yoga. What have you guys, other than Jack doing football? What else have you guys done in terms of a spiritual journey to help with this cope with your mental health right now?
I think a lot of it is being quiet and being reflective. Like I know too, like my husband who's not here, who unfortunately has the flu right now. He does a lot of quiet reflection, meditation, um, just because you do have to reflect
mhm,
on. Some days are harder than others, right? So
mhm."
anywhere, it doesn't matter, but so quiet reflection, walks. We love to walk.
To those
Journaling was
bakery,
something that I pushed.
Journaling.
those
Yeah,
Yeah.
little bakery.
Yeah. Um, journaling,
yeah.
yes, Jack said journaling. I think just trying to sort of be quiet with yourself and sort of figure out where you are and think,
Meet you where you're at.
yeah, meet you where you're at, like meditation, prayer, anything, that works for you. And that's what it's been for us, just taking that time.
Yeah, I think it's important because you said there's this new thing that a lot of psychology now is referring is mind manual reflecting when you just take some
Yes.
time and like it's hard for me because shutting my brain down is something hard.
It's
But then,
difficult.
yeah, so I'll do it like the max 5 minutes, but anything after
Yes.
that. But it's very important to do that, to just shut your mind down and just reflect. On just let go of the day. I like to reflect at the end of the day. It's very important. And as we're
Yes.
done wrapping up this, is there anything else that you guys want to add or that I didn't mention that you guys want to mention?
I feel like even when you move to a new country, it can definitely be really challenging, very hard. But I think there's also so much joy that comes with moving and like exploring a new country. And even when things are difficult and hard, oftentimes they're worth it because, like, um, I just feel like even though in the beginning and even now sometimes moving to Portugal was hard, but it's been so beneficial and has grown us so much as like
It's very
human
rewarding.
beings. It's very rewarding and just a fantastic thing to do. I feel.
Would you
Yeah.
guys do
And
it
I
again?
think,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I was saying, would you guys do it again if you
Um,
had to make a decision? Like,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's good.
Yeah. 100%. I think so. I think, like Jack was saying, it is a difficult thing to do. It's not easy. And again, even if you want to do it, there's I think a point where you second guess like the desire to actually do it. Because once you're there, it is a reality check. Like you experience all of these things and some, seeing things and it's all, some are amazing, but again, like I don't think you always anticipate like the everyday challenges of what it's like to move to a new country when you're unfamiliar with it. But I would say that we would definitely do it again. I think the experience that we've all gained as a family has been incredibly rewarding. Like we've
Yeah.
grown, we've learned new things, we've exposed ourselves to another culture.
And I feel like we've become
And
closer too, because I feel like when people go through a challenging time together, it brings people like closer in a way. So I've been really lucky to have like such
that
a close knit family,
Oh,
and I feel
and
like we've grown closer together.
nice. And I do think that like at the end of the day, I think like if there was one thing I could tell people is that yes, like there are challenging times, but it's part of the process. It
And
is part of the process.
one other thing I'd just add is that like things can be difficult, but I feel like sometimes people fall in the trap of just trying to plan everything, trying to make
Mm,
sure everything's perfect.
right.
And sometimes you just have to kind of like let
allow.
go, and allow what's gonna happen. Like you've said a lot, like let go and let God. And sometimes you can't figure everything out. Sometimes things can just unfold like perfectly for you, and you kind of have to be
Open.
open, um, and release some of the pressure that you're trying to put on yourself by trying to plan every single little thing.
Right. It's true because when you do that too, you also put in anxiety on yourself of pre-planning or
Yes.
pre-expecting something to happen, I find myself doing it
Yeah,
lately, but you put your body
Mm,
through a lot more stress than allow it to just
yeah,
experience it naturally. So you're right. You're right.
yeah.
Anyway, as we're finished, can you tell that everyone where they can find you, where you're social at? I know Jack sometimes he's on you guys are on YouTube, but where else are you guys
Yes,
are on, and what are the names people can find you?
yes.
well,
So we're on YouTube.
we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, and you can find us at Slow Living Portugal. And
Okay.
yes, that's where we share our experiences and our life in Portugal.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's always a delight and a pleasure to just have you, this
Thank you.
wonderful family. And I know you guys gonna be prosperous in Portugal. You're already doing great. I am the fly on the wall in Canada, watching you guys and seeing you guys exploring and doing great things. So thank you guys for coming on.
yes.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having us. Like I said, we were thrilled to
Come back.
be coming back,
And
and
it's
yes,
always so nice to talk to you.
You too. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to that wonderful interview. It was such a delight. If you want to hear more inspiring episodes like these, please to follow us on our Instagram at Immigrate. We'll be uploading all the videos, all the short clips of it, And you can find me in my email at heslop.tashagay13@gmail.com. That is heslop.tashagay13@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to another great episode of Immigrate.